So we are actually about to witness one of the most intense moments of the Rosh Hashanah service, the reading of Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, where Abraham is commanded to sacrifice his beloved son for God. And much has been said and, of course, written about this tragic and transformative story and why we chant it on Rosh Hashanah. But one important point of connection is that the ram that Abraham ultimately sacrifices in place of Yitzchak, his son, is connected to the blowing of the shofar, the ram's horn, on Rosh Hashanah. So the Midrash, an ancient rabbinic story, explains this point of the Torah, this connection, a little further. So the Holy One, of course, showed Abraham the ram tearing itself free from the thicket. This is in the Midrash. And then just getting entangled in another. So you can just imagine this ram sort of tossing its head back and forth. And just as it gets tangled into one thicket, it gets tangled in yet another. And the Holy One said to Abraham, in a similar manner, your children are destined to be caught by sins and entangled by troubles, but they will ultimately be redeemed through the horns of the ram. A little bit of a riddle, almost, a little bit of a puzzle for us to figure out. But I think that the Midrash makes a couple of powerful points. First, is that it's not simply that the ram caught its horns in the thicket, but that ram was repeatedly getting itself stuck. And just as it managed to get itself free, it would find itself stuck in the thicket again. And that this is a metaphor for the Jewish people who repeatedly find themselves caught in their sins and mistakes. Maybe it sounds familiar to you. How many of us have gotten stuck in some problem or another, and just as we are getting over that problem, just as we're making progress, we find ourselves caught in another issue, in another challenge, and it feels oftentimes as if we may never get ourselves freed up so that we can change and move on. But the Midrash tells us that through the sounding of the shofar, we actually can and will be redeemed. In other words, change actually is possible. So what is it about the shofar that specifically allows for this transfer? Perhaps the meaning lies in the idea that the ram, and metaphorically the Jewish people, and by extension, each one of us, will inevitably get caught in the thicket. We will get stuck by virtue of our horns. Yet the horns of the ram can only remain stuck when the ram's head is down, entangling its horns again and again. The cry of the shofar, which we're about to hear a little bit later, actually reminds us to lift our heads up, to have faith in our potential for change. And with our heads raised, we will not have our horns stuck in the thicket, but rather will be able to see more clearly and avoid those pitfalls that keep us stuck. The shofar is a wake-up call to all of us also to have faith in our own potential for growth and change. It's a reminder that we have the power to lift our heads up and respond wisely rather than habitually. And as we sit here today, each one of us in our own way is ready for change. And it's from this hopeful and committed stance that God sounds the shofar, signaling a shift from judgment to mercy, from perpetually getting stuck to noticing that we can actually hold our heads high and free ourselves. So we are going to continue this morning with our Akedat Yitzchak reading, and you can follow along on page 103.